you do say that the industry and the scene have something in common. And I think it's always, these two words are the scene is for non-profit, for creativity, industry for profit. But they are driven by people, as you see, just said about those ENS officers. Absolutely. They're driven by people, but they're driven by driven people. They're relentless. These people are relentless. And I think Enya is a character who really, what again, you wouldn't really associate her with any kind of DIY. But I think it's, what you show in that chapter is that she really is punk, fits in the punk model in a way, because she just debunks any kind of ready-made ideas about her, and was very savvy about maybe keeping her private life to from her public persona. I mean, is it a manufactured persona, the reclusive person, or the ballet between, no, I'm not a reclusive person, yes, she is, and so on. So she's an interesting character, and you know not not somebody who is created by the record industry, but shows really genuine creativity and innovation. So maybe you'd like to say a little bit more, and particularly since she's a woman within that industry, her place in the Irish music industry.
Okay, you mentioned punk and Enya in the same sentence. Now, I didn't, so that's on you. But it's a very, very interesting point. And one of the most interesting comments that I've got on the book is, I was going to skip the chapter on Enya because I'm not interested in her. But I read it, and it's the most interesting chapter in there. So people who thought, I know what I know about Enya, and I don't want to know anymore, and I don't find anything about Enya interesting. That suddenly changed, like it changed for me, when you start digging down. And Enya is absolutely, I deliberately took a quote from someone who's a central figure in the music industry saying Enya wasn't created by the music industry, because this was an incredibly organic growth story. Enya is one of the most successful female solo acts in history. And in Ireland, I think she's not appreciated for, people don't realize the level of success that she's attained. That she's sold more records than Green Day in the States, like more records than Janet Jackson. People who would be seen as superstars of their genre, and to me they are. But Enya is extraordinary because when you look at all the circumstances that needed to be in existence in order for this very introverted person to become a global superstar on her own terms. And again, that's quite uncommon that a woman in the music industry at that level of popularity, there hasn't been a single shred of compromise in any decision that she's made. Like, very, very few artists can say that. And it's because Nikki and Roma Ryan, who are her, Nikki's the producer, this incredible producer who brought this artist into a sonic landscape that I think Enya didn't anticipate. Maybe Nikki had a bit of a vision about it, but it was certainly, in terms of someone being a multi-million selling artist, no one globally had done that before. And to have the sustained career that Enya has enjoyed, no one else has replicated that in that genre. So it's remarkable from that point of view that the mythology is, oh, she's so mystical and she's so dreamy and she's so out there, and she's a woman of complete mystery. And then you look at, well, how come she was keeping a diary that was then published during her early success, where she was clearly involved in every decision about her career. And by the way, a career that then turned out to be the career of one of the most successful female artists on the planet. So there's a lot to be appreciated about that DIY. A major label wouldn't have invested in Enya because and we know that because where's the successful Enya that was dreamt up by a major label in California or New York or London or anywhere else? It just hasn't been replicated. So there's something extraordinary about the combination of circumstances and ingredients that had to go in to make her very successful. And you mentioned traditional Irish music in Ireland, and Nicky Ryan came out of the traditional Irish music background. And our traditional music, the enterprise of traditional music in Ireland, especially the more adventurous side of things like the Bothy Band or Planksty or even Day Dana. The enterprise behind those was more sophisticated than the enterprise behind the show bands. And the show bands never exported. There's a lot of mythology about Joe Dolan's success and the first Western artist to play Russia, which is a crock. It's untrue. Cliff Richard had played there before, but Cliff Richard didn't want people to know because it was, I'm only there because there's nothing else going on. Whereas over here was, oh, he's huge because he's played in Russia. But the enterprise of our traditional music, because these people were working, they were touring the States, they were touring Germany, Clonard were breaking, out of mainstream continental Europe. So there was a savviness, there was an exposure to the global music industry that was very, very sophisticated and brought a huge educated component to the Irish music industry. And out of that comes Nicky Ryan. And I think I mentioned in the book some of the quotes from Faulkner O'Kellig, who later managed Sinead O'Connor and Boomtown Rats and Bananarama and people like that. And he was working with Clonard. He was a great supporter of Irish bands, and he was touring around. He was the manager, and Nicky was the sound technician. And he saw a genius in Nicky for manipulating sound and for understanding artists and the market. And there's the famous thing where at the trad gigs, people would clap along. They might have had a few pints to be clapping along, and then you couldn't hear this incredible, beautiful, sometimes subtle music and the melodies. So he'd bring, Faulkner was saying that with any other sound person, they just make the band sound louder. But Nicky thought, no, I'll just turn the band down to almost zero. So they're almost acoustic. So people have to stop clapping to listen to it. But he was also a great experimenter. He was a brilliant, brilliant technical engineer with oodles of imagination. And he worked with Clonard. I think there was a certain frustration at some level that maybe Clonard could go a little bit further if they were a bit more experimental. And Clonard didn't agree with his vision. So he left at the same time that Enya, who had been a small part of Clonard and a recent part. And he just took this, the most unlikely global superstar, the most unlikely global success story, and made her into just that, into a multi-million seller. His wife Roma does the lyrics, and they've got this setup that's allowed an artist who doesn't even tour. Again, that's almost unprecedented for someone to sell that quantity of records, to not tour, not have to deal with all of the mess that goes on with life on the road, and who I genuinely think hasn't had to compromise on a single atom of anything to do with her career.
And I think you say in the book as well that she's very clear about that fame and success are two different things. And she's been extremely clever in managing this concept, I think.